Hey,
Hello.
we're back with more comics to review.
Yes, we are. What are we looking at today?
We've already looked at a lot of things today, but in this video, if you didn't read the title, Green Lantern, New Guardians, and Teen Titans.
It's Titanic.
Yep. Teen Titanic.
Yes, I want to see that. Well, I mean, the movie Titanic is essentially about teenagers.
Yeah. So, I want to start with Teen Titans. Yeah.
Why not?
Okay. So, Teen Titans.
Oh, do you want me to talk?
Yeah, you talk.
Well, with Teen Titans, it's odd, in some of these stories, in some of these characters, we're continuing off directly where we left off. Teen Titans is a new thing. We're kind of starting from the very beginning looking at this organization. The relationship of this Teen Titans to the other Teen Titans that we may be familiar with, not entirely clear. But what we have now is a group of, not a group of, but we have just a scattering of metahuman teenagers.
And Robin.
And Robin. Well, Tim Drake.
And Superboy.
Not Superboy.
Well, he's not a metahuman.
Yes, he is.
No, he's a lab baby.
Yeah, but he's still a metahuman. What are you saying?
Whatever.
So, do you want to continue this?
You do it.
Alright, I will do it. He's bored.
I'll do Green Lantern.
He's bored. What we have is a group of metahuman teenagers all over the world. The news is talking about them, and there is a very sinister-seeming organization called Nowhere trying to get them all together for... Yes, it's an acronym for something. Trying to get them all together for some sinister purpose that's quite sinister. So, after we see an incident involving Kid Flash, Tim Drake sets off to, after they've come to his penthouse to attack him, he runs off and tries to get these other metahuman teenagers together for some purpose. What?
Nothing. Nothing. Good.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Trying to get them together in order to fight the sinister actions of this organization. You don't want to review this.
I do.
No, he's just really...
So, yes, Teen Titans. Rated T for Titan.
Yeah, rated T for Titans.
What did you think of it?
What did I think of it?
What did you think of Teen Titans?
What did I think of Teen Titans? Oh, also, one other thing, not to give anything away, but this is a direct tie-in with Superboy. So everything that happens is kind of completely concurrent with the events of Superboy.
Yep.
And the endings, actually, of each one is just a segue into the other. So they're kind of like twin series. Not twins, but like sister series. So it's, Superboy just kind of fleshes in some details.
It's not really a spoiler, is it?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just,
Here he is.
Superboy is in it.
Yep. Last page.
Then again, he's on the cover, so
Yep.
we would know that he's in it. Although, a lot of other characters that we see on the cover are not in this.
He's only a cameo. We don't know who this person is or that person, and he's only in the beginning.
That's a barcode.
No, the spider person.
Ah.
Yeah.
Arachnia. I just made up that name. But, yeah, we haven't reached these characters yet. It's mostly just, it's mostly Tim Drake, with some Kid Flash.
Tim Drake and Wonder Girl. With Kid Flash in the beginning.
Anyway, I enjoyed it, although I do think it does feel more like a, it doesn't feel like a complete comic, because it does feel like it's kind of complementing Superboy, or perhaps that Superboy is complementing it. I actually find it surprising that Superboy was released first. Now, he didn't like it. Maybe you should talk about what you think of it.
It's not that I didn't like it. It's just I didn't think there was enough story to it. I thought there was too much Tim Drake, and I didn't like the Tim Drake character that much. I don't think he could hold as much story as the authors might have wanted him to.
He's Julian Assange.
Yeah, he's just kind of... He is more Oracle than Robin, I guess. He's working at a computer a lot. He's kind of just gathering research on these guys, and It's only after that these guys intervene in his penthouse that he actually starts to actually gather these people up. And
Notice that I'm going to point out that the amount of time that he spends gathering this information is about 2 pages.
but we know that he's been doing it a lot longer.
Keep going.
And the best part of this comic is when he does meet Wonder Girl, and him and Wonder Girl are kind of getting to know each other. He just kind of comes out of nowhere while she's stealing a car, and then a helicopter comes out of nowhere and shoots at him. Red Robin's like, well, I'm fine, what are you going to do to protect yourself? And then we find out what she can do, except not really, except...
And then the comic's over. You
Yeah.
pretty much just explained everything that happens in the comic.
And so I didn't think there was just much going on, and I didn't like the characters enough where they could just be them, like, well, mostly Tim Drake just on his own.
I think I was getting bored, but what I felt was I think that having Tim Drake carry most of the story is not necessarily a bad idea. I think that it's still kind of stretching out with exposition. I think Kid Flash was probably the most interesting thing,
Yeah.
because he has just sort of this personality that leaps off the page, although he was more of a segue into the story than an actual part of the story at this point.
The Kid Flash part was also really good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, but I think that we're really getting a lot of exposition that's kind of already covered in Superboy, so it's not so much that it's not going anywhere, but that it's telling us things that are already explored in a different comic that's a tie-in to this. I mean, I still think that the way that they did this, with having both of these comics telling pretty much the same story, is kind of strange. I'm not sure it necessarily works, but I think that the story that we do get, it works for me. Because I think it's starting off telling what's going to end up being a big story. I mean, we've got a lot of characters, and we're actually taking the time to explore them one by one. Not so much getting into the plot, which I will say is still kind of lagging behind. We still don't know what Nowhere is planning, or who is behind all of this, or how they're going to be fought. But I think that, I think that what we have so far is engaging enough to continue smoothly into the next.
I think this
issue.
is one of those comics where I really want to wait until there's more.
Yeah.
Like I'd wait till a second or third issue to really pick it up.
Yeah. I feel almost as though I feel almost as though it's already a second issue
I see where you're coming from.
after Superboy.
Yeah. I still don't think that there's enough story though altogether to really drag me in yet.
Would you like to talk about the visual aspect of the book?
Okay. Well, each character is the art style at least that complements them is very unique. We can see in the Speed Flash, the Kid Flash section, a lot of speed lines, a lot of motion, a lot of movement, kind of like a hasty art. But unlike the Flash comic, it's just dynamic. It's out there. It's vibrant. And with Red Robin,
He's got a much more high-tech look to
yeah,
him. Just,
Tim Drake
Did we get a
looks
shot with his wings?
okay.
I think that's good. He is much more like there. Not that one. How about the
I know.
like that one there?
Okay. So there's a panel with him.
You've got.
He's a lot more robotic, maybe? I don't know.
I think Superboy is the one who looks robotic, but he's got much more of a, I think, high-tech gadgetry sort of look to him. He's, I like his design. I think.
Yeah, his design's cool. Meanwhile, we have Wonder Girl,
who has
here,
I
who's
think that's
very-
a great shot. She's very.
mystical, magical.
You can see the
magic-y,
power coming
yeah.
off of her.
And
So-
even her costume, it has all the Kirby dots.
Yeah. So I would say that while we don't necessarily have, I don't think it's so much the art style of just backgrounds and everything, but the art style of every individual character. It's very distinct, and
Yeah.
it does help each of these characters stand out.
And then, of course, you have Superboy at the end, who is just shining.
And godlike,
Yeah.
yet machine-like.
So I did like the art. I liked
Yeah.
how each character was distinct.
Don't know who these guys are. They aren't in it.
No, but
Those
personality-wise,
folks in
the
the cover.
characters just not yet. I either want the more characters to be introduced and have them carry the story more than just Tim Drake on his own, or have the team aspect really come out. I don't know, I'm getting into personal stuff, but I thought the panels where Robin, Red Robin, and Wonder Girl were working together and just kind of talking really were the best parts of the issue, because then you don't have to shoulder the whole thing on Tim Drake.
I think that if Tim Drake is just kind of giving exposition and considering that this is our really first introduction to him, I think that having him the focus of maybe a little less than a third of the comic isn't really that bad an idea. Especially considering that he's, in terms of characters, 1/3 of the comic.
Yeah.
So it feels more balanced to me. Where on a letter scale would you put this?
Probably a C.
I would also give it a C. I probably enjoyed it more than you, but I still think that it needs time to develop. It's going pretty slowly. I like the characters as we're introduced to them, but the plot is still really too vague for me to say it's...
It kind of reminds me most of Justice League #1, in that we have this whole team thing going on, we have a bigger story that is coming, but we're not being introduced to everyone quite at a good enough pace. Except with Justice League, you had the two characters basically from the beginning of the book. Basically, you had two characters interacting, and that drove the story, instead of it just being shouldered on either Batman or Green Lantern.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if Wonder Girl was introduced faster, then it might have been better. Or if Kid Flash and Robin then work together. I just think there's too much time apart.
Yeah, I think here it's interesting. I think we've probably got more character development than in something like Justice League, but I think that the plot is also moving slower.
Yeah.
So if that's at a cost to it, except for Kid Flash. I think Kid Flash's intro, sort of his intro and disappearance over just a couple pages, that works for me.
Yeah.
And he's probably right now the most interesting thing in the book. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would give it a C. I'll also wait to see where this goes, and also see where Superboy goes, because again, it does feel almost like they're different parts of the same comic. And
so moving on,
Green Lantern, New Guardians.
Green Lantern, New Guardians. Here we are. I liked it, but first, before we get into that, the story.
Yeah. Do you mind if I summarize?
I want to see you summarize Teen Titans.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the story is that once again we're being introduced to another Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner, and while he's just kind of living, being Kyle Rayner, we see that
being an artist,
Oa is being destroyed
by something.
And Kyle Rayner's ring is the last Green Lantern ring in existence.
Where did that come from?
Well, it's not the last in existence, because there's still other Green Lanterns working concurrently.
Are there? I don't even know. Because there aren't any more Guardians.
Yeah, but there are... Well, it's said in the story that the other Green Lanterns are or have existed, and could currently be active, so it's kind of weird in that respect.
Not to get ahead of things, but one thing that just from the get-go is a bit confusing to me is exactly when and where this is happening. Mm-hmm. Since we've had other Green Lantern stories where Oa is not in this condition at all, where other Lanterns are doing whatever. I mean, I think the Green Lantern Corps book was really clear. They tied in, okay, John Stewart and Guy Gardner are the Green Lanterns number 2 and 3 on Earth. So
Hal Jordan is Green Lantern #1, or it might be Sinestro.
Sinestro is Green Lantern #1.
And so, anyway.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Kyle Rayner, he gets a Green Lantern ring out of nowhere, not really explained when, in context. And then as he gets his rings, he's discovering his powers, picks up on them really quickly, considering he's an artist already, is extremely creative. And as he gets his ring, we find that members of other Lantern Corps, the Sinestro Corps, the Star Sapphire Corps, members...
Is there a Star Sapphire Corps?
I don't know. But anyway, they're losing their power rings. They're being decommissioned. And
one from each group.
One from each group, and they're all going to Kyle Rayner. So by the end of the book, Kyle Rayner is receiving all of these different power rings, but before he can put them all on, different members from each faction come to, investigate why these rings have just decommissioned their members all of a sudden.
No, you're really good at just explaining absolutely everything that happens from cover to cover.
I'm not spoiling it, though.
Yes, you are.
It's not really.
I'm saying throughout the entire thing, we know that these rings are going to Sector 2487 or whatever Earth is. We don't know who they're going to. This is not made clear until the very last panel. So it really is a spoiler, although at the same time, the fact that he figured it out...
But it is the premise of the story, too.
It's odd. It's the premise of the story, but yeah, it's strange. Because that's why I'm not going to edit this out and tell him to start over again, even though he really is spoiling stuff, because I think even from the very cover, it's sort of a search for the Green Lantern rings.
Well,
not the Green Lantern rings.
The rainbow
very
lantern.
many rings forming this giant pile. But, so yeah, we've got all of these rings going to Earth. And
going to Kyle.
Well, yeah, if you read to the very last page. So you really don't have to read this book now. He's just told you everything that happens. Keep going.
Okay, so, yeah. Well, you already said I got the whole story. Do you want to talk about the art now?
No, talk about what you think of the story.
Okay, so I enjoyed it. I enjoy Kyle Rayner. This is a Kyle Rayner story. It's built on his character. He's the main character. We see him we see most of him throughout the story. And unlike Tim Drake, he's a fun character. I think he's interesting. I like him. He's a cool guy. He picks up on his powers quickly, very creative, very silly, I guess. Like the first construction he makes with his Green Lantern ring is just a cartoon version of one of the Guardians. I think we can see here. That is his first construction. And we see him just kind of getting used to these powers, and he's helping out the city and all that. And he's likable. And we're also being not really introduced, but we're seeing these other lanterns too from the other factions, kind of losing their ring, and then at the end you see all of them come together. And so this, Adam and I discussed this, and it is mostly a premise book, but the premise is very interesting, and the characters are, well, at least Kyle Rayner, done very well.
See, I like Kyle Rayner. I think he is interesting and well written. My problems are, first off, how we got to this situation with Oa in ruins and all this stuff, which seems to not be connected to the rest of the Green Lantern books that are being released concurrent with it, is very confusing. And second, I think that while seeing Kyle Rayner getting his ring, it's interesting. It's kind of thrown out, not thrown out, but thrown out at you and then resolved in just a few pages. The rest of the book, which is a member of each group losing their lantern ring and someone else going after them, it feels a bit boring, because I think the idea is alright, that's nice, but we're taking probably half the book just seeing characters who we don't necessarily know very well and who aren't going to be continuing throughout this, focusing on each of them, and also each person who goes after the ring to find out where it's going to this sector is also not really introduced in any detail. So really, Kyle Rayner is the only character we know anything about, even though he's in no more than half of the story. And the rest of it is just kind of very slowly almost. It's fast-paced, but using a tremendous amount of space to establish all of these people are losing their rings. So, assuming that these characters are going to be the focus of the rest of the book and are going to be pretty much driving the plot along with Kyle Rayner, I think we know next to nothing about them, which is kind of making me, I guess, wonder a little bit who they are, but also just feel like they're not really characters at this point. And my other question is, it's an interesting idea for a story. I'm not sure how this is going to be the premise of an entire series. I'm not sure we've really set the terms for that yet, but maybe that will happen as the story progresses. Visually?
Visually, it is very familiar to the other Green Lantern stories, visually. It's very bright, use of the primary colors, and, well, just the color spectrum, I guess. Very heavy use of that. I didn't find anything extremely distinctive other than the use of all the colors.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that really, it uses light as...
Yeah.
More so than even the other Green Lantern books, because every time we see someone fighting, we have a different, people fighting with a different color spectrum. So we'll see, for example, we have a completely red page, even with things that aren't, even with fire, which is also red, coloring the Red Lantern. Whereas when we move on to Star Sapphire, we have
Pink.
a pinkish, violetish page, because we all know that Star Sapphires are fuchsia. They're not. And again,
Yellow, yellow.
yellow for Sinestro. So we're kind of, I think, moving across the color spectrum as we read the book. And then, overall, I think just the way that people are drawn, it's, I don't know, it seems a bit more heavy in shadow and a bit more heavily shaded than I would expect from a Green Lantern book, like, let's say, here where we're looking at actual people. But, yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't think it really strikes me as detracting from or adding to the story, just the way that Earth is drawn. But, so yeah, where would you
I'd put
rank
it as
this?
C+.
C+.
I think it's an interesting premise. I like Kyle Rayner. I want to find out what happens, where this all goes, how it evolves. So C+.
Yeah, I would put it at maybe a D+ or a C-, probably a C-. I think that, again, Kyle Rayner, well written, he's cute, he's charming, he's funny. Beyond that, I don't think that we're really following his character much. It's more based on this premise of all of the rings going to him for some reason. But beyond the question of why they're going to him, I don't think we really have a story. And in terms of just characters and more nuanced plot elements, we don't have anything being introduced in this. Other than he's Kyle Rayner, he's getting the rings, and that's it. So I think if we're devoting an entire book to that, it's not a bad idea, but it's also not a particularly good book in my view. So I'd say actually probably a D+.
Okay.
All right.
So in the next video, we'll be reviewing 2 more comics: Black Hawks and Savage Hawkman.
Yeah.
See you then.
We'll have a hawk of a time.
That's not even a pun.
I know.